If you're the type of player who likes to gamble for specific chase items, or if you just want to equip your duelers with gold for repairs, having a Goldfind Barb is the way to go. I've done a few videos about this build in the past, but we've got some new tricks. There's been a lot of talk about the new Act 5 Frenzy Mercenary and whether or not it can hold a candle to our beloved Emilio, the Act 2 Desert Merc. In this video, we're going to look at a patch 2.4 Goldfind Barbarian and compare the clear speed with the current build that we have on Battle.net. Let's dive in. Although stacking Goldfind on a Merc can be important, believe it or not, the most important thing about a Goldfind Merc is their clear speed. This is the lesson I've learned through thousands of Goldfind runs over the years. While it's really cool to get that extra little kick of gold when you stack your Mercenary up with a Wealth Armor, it comes at the price of actually being able to put the council members down at a reasonable pace. And it's especially true if you're searching for gold in Hell difficulty. So the items we use on this build will be tailored towards just that. We want the Merc dealing as much damage per second as possible. I'm going to start by looking at our 2.4 Goldfind build. Let's take a look at the gear of Mr. or Mrs. Ragnar over here. There's actually a lot of different ways you can do this, but this is how we have this Mercenary set up. For the helm, we have Indariel's Visage. This is for the increased attack speed and the life leech. Unfortunately, this does draw us back 30% on the fire resist, making that not necessarily ideal on this Mercenary, but I do find that the life leech and the Cham rune in here for Cannot Be Frozen does indeed quite make up for that. We have an Eth Fortitude for the armor. This is because that 300% enhanced damage is exactly what we want to be doing on this build. In years past, I have put wealth as the armor on this guy, but as I get older and have less time for shit in life, speed beats Goldfind. Which weapons you put on your Frenzy Merc can really make a difference. Grief is a very overpowered weapon, so of course we're going to put this on one of the hands of this Mercenary. Now, if you use a po' boy, what you can do with the glitch that exists in this game is just kind of put one grief here, and due to a glitch that currently exists in patch 2.4, it will actually treat it as though you have two griefs on. Something tells me that's going to be patched by the time this comes out. But regardless, the other sword that I do take advantage of here on the Mercenary is Head Striker. This is ethereal and upped into a conquest sword. The reason this is so good is because it gives a big bonus to max damage, and it just has that inherent huge deadly strike. So we're always doing double damage with this sword right here. I did put a 40-15 jewel in this, but I actually don't think that's the best thing. I think you actually either want to put an rune for the open wounds or a bear rune in here for the crushing blow. If you really want to get froggy and protect that fire res, I suppose you could throw some jewel in here that had resistance as well. It's entirely up to you. Some other options that you do have is you could use Breath of the Dying. I have found that to not necessarily be as powerful as Last Wish. If you want that po' boy budget though, you could use a Kingslayer, and the crushing blow and open wounds and huge bonus to attack rating here is actually pretty good. You might also notice this rune word has extra gold from monsters on it, kind of going along with the theme. As for gear on the Barb himself, it's pretty standard Goldfind stuff here. We got 2 Blades of Alibaba for that big boost to extra gold from monsters. If you're into all that magic finding stuff there too, this is a pretty nice bonus to that. Immortal King's Will here with 2 Lem runes in it gives us a nice bonus to extra gold from monsters and some inherent better magic find. We've created in single player this best in slot amulet right here. Basically, the most important thing that you're going to want to aim for here is resistances and extra gold from monsters. We do have Wealth Mage Plate for the armor, Chance Guard for gloves, 2 Dwarf Stars for the rings. In this version, we got a gold wrap here, but you can actually find rare belts that are far better than this. Same thing for the boots, but we're currently using Inferno Stride. On the swap is probably the biggest piece of spice for this right here. This is where we get our teleport from and our decrepify charges. When you get into the area where your Merc starts attacking these guys with Frenzy, you're going to be casting decrepify down on top of them, making your run even faster. The inventory for this character is usually where things can get pretty expensive. This guy in particular, I actually have a few different types of charms down here in the inventory. We got some Shimmering Grand Charms Agreed for all res and 40 extra gold from monsters. And these kind of transition into Sounding Grand Charms of Greed for that +1 to war cries and 40 gold find. Small charms are kind of the harder ones to find here. There are 10 extra gold find with 5 all to resistances. You're also gonna want a Geeds in here. I don't know why I didn't, I don't know what happened to the Geeds here. Don't know why I didn't put that there. It seems like a good item. We'll just go ahead and pretend this is Geeds. That would give you the full trifecta of unique charms in the inventory when you combine that with the Hellfire Torch and Annihilus. Again, the inventory is probably the most expensive piece of this, and you know, you can easily get away early on with just some 40% extra gold find charms if you're really trying to aim for this gold find character on early ladder. Our strategy is to CT teleport to the council to save time and tele charges, assess which direction our Merc is headed, and then decrepify the monsters he's most likely to engage with first. From there, we leap, we war cry, and continue to keep up to crepify. Essentially, we are the support characters here. All hat, no cattle. After the Merc is done, we hork the bodies and collect the loot. In a small sample size of runs, this build came out with a pretty decent clear time. This Mercenary does seem to have a couple of drawbacks, however. Namely, Frenzy seems to focus on multiple adjacent targets at once. This can be especially problematic if certain council members sit back and go on healing duty. You can correct this by just doing short little leaps with the Barbarian, which admittedly do look a lot more stupid in patch 2.4. Look at these moon jumping. We're no longer leaping, we're moon jumping. Regardless, let's take a look at how this compares to our build on BattleNet. Well, the real big difference between these two mercenaries is, well, the fact that this is a Desert Mercenary from Act 2. They both use Fortitude armor, but Emilio here is using Crown of Thieves, of course with a Cham rune in there as well, and an EBOTD Warpike. Again, in later versions of this build, we prioritize speed. Emilio does have some good benefits. He does insanely high damage to single targets. He's very good at focusing on one target at once. This is extremely useful in this specific scenario, again, because the council members like to sit back and heal each other. That being said, the damage output from this Act 5 Frenzy Mercenary is just too much for Emilio to compete. Emilio's average time was about 36 seconds from the waypoint to clearing the council and doing the final body hork. Whenever we ran into a physical immune here, we actually just skipped it. And additionally, we only counted time from the waypoint to clearing council because there's a lot of other stuff that happens in between runs, such as repairing, visiting the stash to drop off gold, etc. So while Emilio's average clear time was about 36 seconds, the gender-neutral Ragnar clocked in at an average time of 31. It might not seem like much, but you gotta remember this is a 17% faster run on average. So just about every 5 runs, it saves you an entire run, time-wise. And because gambling remains one of the most efficient ways to track down high-value jewelry and endgame helms, this could be very significant. While we initially thought that this build would break D2R, it turns out D2R broke this build.